We are wading into some truly profound territory today.
Yeah, we really are. It's a big one.
It is. Usually when you think about a medical diagnosis, there is a certain comfort in the precision of it all. Like if you break your arm, the doctor pulls up an x-ray, points to a jagged white line on the screen, and tells you exactly what is wrong.
Right, it's visible, it's categorized, and you can manage it.
Exactly. It's totally binary. The bone is either fractured or it isn't, right?
Mm.
The solution is just mechanical.
Yeah, but then you zoom out, you step away from the physical skeleton and look at the broader landscape of, well, human suffering.
Which is so much messier.
Oh, completely. You look at existential angst, or, just that quiet, persistent dissatisfaction you might feel even on a seemingly good day. Suddenly, you don't have an x-ray machine.
Yeah, you're navigating a diagnostic landscape that feels super murky.
Yeah.
Subjective.
Right. You try to pinpoint why you feel stressed or unhappy, and you end up blaming 100 different external factors.
Oh, for sure. Like my job, my commute, the news cycle.
Exactly, which is why the text we are examining today is just so audacious.
Yes, the Adyasabhasha.
Right. Written in the 8th century by the philosopher Adi Shankara. It serves as the preamble, like the grand introduction to his massive commentary on the Brahma Sutras.
And Shankara, he does not deal in murky, subjective diagnoses.
Not at all. He claims to possess the ultimate X-ray for the entire human condition.
I mean, he promises to isolate the exact single root cause of every ounce of psychological suffering you experience.
It's a bold claim.
It really is. As someone who is constantly trying to understand the underlying mechanics of why people tick, I find that level of philosophical confidence mesmerizing. To claim that all human neuroses, all fear, all anxiety boils down to just one fundamental error.
Well, Shankara builds his argument with the rigor of a mathematical proof. He states that all human suffering stems from a single catastrophic mix-up.
A mix-up.
Yeah. We spend our entire lives constantly confusing two things that are mutually exclusive. We mistake the self for the non-self.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of that, because self and non-self can sound like, abstract academic terms.
Sure. Yeah.
When you say we're mixing them up, what are the actual ingredients in this mix?
So Shankar relies on a very clear metaphor, light versus darkness. The self, the Atman, which is the pure, silent, observing consciousness that is your ultimate I, that is light. It is eternal and completely unchanging. And then the non-self encompasses absolutely everything else.
Like the physical body.
The physical body, your shifting emotions, your anxious thoughts, and the entire external world. All of that is categorized as darkness.
Wow, okay.
And logically speaking, you cannot blend light and darkness. You can't possess dark light or bright darkness. By definition, the presence of one dictates the absence of the other.
Right, so they shouldn't even be able to interact.
Yeah.
The unchanging witness and the decaying physical body are as fundamentally opposed as two things can be. Yet, if I look at how you and I use language every single day, we force them to interact constantly. Like, you might say, I am exhausted, or I am getting old, or I am overweight.
Which we all do, all the time.
Right, you don't say, my physical vessel is currently experiencing cellular fatigue, which would be technically accurate.
No, you don't.
You take a temporary decaying condition of the physical body and you paste it directly onto your core identity.
And that phrasing, pasting it onto your core identity, is the precise danger Shankara is warning about. It's the coupling of the real and the unreal.
The real and the unreal.
Yeah. The pure consciousness is the only permanent reality, while the body and mind are temporary, changing phenomena. When you utter the phrase, I am this body, you sign a contract accepting all the vulnerabilities of that physical object.
Oh, man. So if the body is threatened, your very existence feels threatened.
Right. You take an infinite invulnerable awareness and handcuff it to a fragile, finite form.
But wait, if I think about how a mix-up usually happens, it involves two things I can actually perceive.
How do you mean?
Like, if I grab the salt shaker instead of the pepper shaker, it's because they are both sitting right there on the table in front of me. I can see both objects.
Sure.
But this pure consciousness, the self, isn't an object on a table. It's totally invisible. You can't put it under a microscope. You can't weigh it. How can the human brain superimpose the heavy physical properties of a body onto something it cannot even see?
That is a classic philosophical objection, and Shankara anticipates it perfectly.
It does.
Yeah. He counters by pointing out that while the self is not an object you can observe, it is not a void. It is completely self-evident.
Self-evident.
You don't need a microscope to know that you exist. The feeling of I am is the most immediate, undeniable reality of your life.
That's true.
Every thought you have, every emotion you feel is illuminated by that underlying presence. So the self is known, even if it cannot be held like an object.
Oh, that makes total sense when you realize we actually project things onto invisible spaces all the time.
Right.
Think about the sky. The text actually uses this analogy, which I love. When you look up, the sky itself is just vast, empty space. It has no color, no shape, no physical substance.
Exactly.
But you step outside and say, the sky's so blue today, or the sky looks dirty and gray. You are naturally projecting color and atmospheric pollution onto a completely invisible, colorless void.
It's automatic.
Yeah. You superimpose physical properties onto space without giving it a second thought.
And the sky analogy perfectly illustrates the seamless nature of this error. The space remains entirely unaffected by the blue or the gray, yet the projection happens so automatically that we forget the reality of the empty space.
We just accept the blue as the absolute truth.
Right. So now that we understand the nature of the elements being mixed up, we have to examine the psychological mechanism behind it.
Okay.
Shankara gives this grand illusion a specific technical name, adhyasa, which translates to superimposition.
Adhyasa. So if the brain is usually quite brilliant at processing reality and keeping facts straight, how does it pull off adhyasa so convincingly? Like, what is the actual definition of this superimposition?
Well, Shankara defines adhyasa as a memory-like appearance in a different location.
A memory-like appearance in a different location.
Yes. It requires taking an attribute or an object you have experienced previously, holding it in your memory, and projecting it onto a new, completely different foundation where it does not actually belong.
So relying on a past experience to completely misinterpret a present moment.
Precisely.
It's like the classic example of walking along the beach and seeing a bright glint in the sand. You get excited, thinking, silver coin.
Right, you've seen silver before.
Yeah, but then you bend down, pick it up, and realize it's just a piece of mother of pearl. It's a shiny seashell. The silver was never there. Your brain took the memory of silver from past experiences and superimposed it over the shell.
And an even more visceral example from the text is the rope and the snake.
Oh, this one is so good.
It really gets the point across. Imagine you walk into a dimly lit storage room. You glance at the floor and see a coiled shape in the corner.
Okay, my heart is already racing.
Right. Because your brain instantly retrieves the memory of a dangerous snake and superimposes it onto that shape. Your physiological response is immediate and real.
Adrenaline everywhere.
Exactly. Your heart rate skyrockets, adrenaline floods your system, and you are paralyzed with terror. But eventually, someone walks in and flips the light switch. You look down and see it is just a piece of coiled rope.
The physiological response is the key there because the illusion completely dictates your actions.
Totally.
If you firmly believe that coil is a snake, you are going to take drastic action. You might sprint out of the room. Or you might grab a heavy broomstick and start frantically beating the coil to protect yourself.
Right, survival mode.
But think about the futility of that. You are exhausting yourself, sweating, violently beating a piece of rope. You cannot beat a rope into submission to make it stop being a snake, because it was never a snake to begin with.
And that futility, that is Shankara's core thesis regarding how we try to solve our suffering.
Wow.
If the root of your misery is an illusion, a mistaken superimposition, then physical action cannot cure it. You cannot axe your way out of ignorance.
So beating the snake is pointless.
Completely.
Yeah.
In that dark room, trying to negotiate with the snake won't help. Running away from the snake doesn't remove the fear because you still think there's a snake in your house. Striking it with a stick accomplishes nothing.
The only thing that actually solves the problem is turning on the light.
That's it.
It's purely a matter of knowledge. You don't destroy the snake, you just realize it never existed.
Knowledge destroys the superimposition. Within Shankara's framework, avidya, or ignorance, is the ongoing act of superimposing the snake on the rope, or projecting the decay of the physical body onto the eternal self.
And vidya.
Vidya, or true knowledge, is the light switch. But until that light of realization is flipped on, Shankara argues we live in a perpetual state of rope and snake.
A perpetual state of fear and reaction.
Yeah. We navigate our entire existence through a distorted dual lens, aham idam, which means I am this body, and its natural sequel, mama idam, which means this stuff is mine.
That progression makes so much sense. The moment you identify as a vulnerable physical body, you suddenly need things to protect it.
You need a lot of things.
Right. You need a house, you need money, you need status. I am this immediately creates this is mine. But This brings us to a part of the text that I think might ruffle some feathers.
Oh, definitely.
Because if our baseline reality is this omni-dumb confusion, how does that shape the way you and I walk through a normal Tuesday? Shankara makes the provocative claim that this underlying operating system makes our daily logic indistinguishable from that of wild animals.
It is a bracing comparison.
It really is.
He argues that as long as your primary identification is tethered to the physical form, all of your sophisticated reasoning, your scientific achievements, and your complex social interactions are running on the exact same behavioral script as a cow or a dog.
I have to admit, my ego instinctively rebels against that.
Of course it does.
I mean, we build skyscrapers, we compose symphonies, we split the atom. How can he justify comparing a highly educated human being to a cow grazing in a field?
He justifies it by stripping away the complexity of the action and looking solely at the root motivation.
Okay.
He offers a simple observation. When a man approaches a cow holding a heavy raised stick, the cow's internal logic dictates this object will cause pain to my physical form, and it turns and flees.
Makes sense.
But when a man approaches that same cow offering a handful of fresh green grass, the cow processes that as this object will bring pleasure and sustenance to my physical form, and it moves toward the man.
Fleeing pain and seeking pleasure, the most basic biological imperatives.
Exactly. Now, Shankara turns the mirror toward humanity. A man walks toward you wielding a drawn sword, and you run away in terror.
Yeah, I would.
Right? Another man approaches you with a warm smile, offering you a gift or praise, and you lean in, welcoming him. Shankara strips away the context and asks, what is the fundamental difference? In both human and animal scenarios, the behavior is entirely dictated by the same premise. The premise is, I am this physical body, and the external world is a series of objects that either threaten my survival or enhance my comfort.
Okay, I see how the basic survival instincts align. But surely the listener tuning into this deep dive is engaged in pursuits far beyond just running from swords and chasing food.
You would hope so.
Right. What about philanthropy? What about a dedicated career meant to help others? What about complex religious and spiritual duties? Doesn't the capacity to sacrifice present comfort for a future spiritual reward elevate human action above the animal kingdom?
An opponent of Shankara's philosophy in the 8th century would raise that exact defense. They would point to the Karma Kanda.
Karma Kanda.
Yes. This is the section of the ancient Vedic scriptures entirely dedicated to rituals, sacrifices, and duties designed to secure prosperity in this life or secure a place in heaven after death.
So highly formalized spiritual action.
Right. The argument was that animals cannot perform Vedic rituals, therefore humans are operating on a higher plane. But Shankara dismantles that defense completely.
How so?
He points out that engaging in a religious ritual requires a profound level of ignorance.
Wait, really? How does performing a sacred ritual require ignorance? Isn't that supposed to be the path to enlightenment?
Well, think about it. To perform a ritual aimed at getting into heaven, you must first hold a deeply seated belief about yourself.
Which is?
You must believe, I am a limited, incomplete individual. I currently lack something essential, and therefore I must perform this specific action. I must become a doer to acquire what I'm missing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So the very act of striving for a spiritual reward just reinforces the ego. It cements the idea that you are a fragile, finite creature who has to hustle to manipulate the universe into giving you what you want.
Precisely. Action inherently demands a doer. And identifying as the doer requires you to identify with the limitations of the body and the mind.
Because if you were infinite, you wouldn't need to do anything.
Exactly. The true self, the pure consciousness we discussed earlier, is infinite. It is already complete. It pervades everything. An infinite being does not need to perform a fire ritual to earn a ticket to heaven because it is already everywhere.
That is mind-bending.
So Shankara concludes that until you fundamentally shift your core identification away from the body, you are just an animal in fancier, perhaps more spiritual clothes. You are still running on a highly sophisticated treadmill of pain avoidance and pleasure seeking.
Man, if every action from climbing the corporate ladder to performing a sacred ritual just feeds the ego and keeps you on the treadmill, what is the listener supposed to do with that information?
It's a heavy realization.
It is. Does this mean the only valid solution is to physically drop out of society? Do you have to quit your job, leave your family, put on a simple robe, and go sit silently in a cave to stop being an animal?
That is perhaps the most widespread misunderstanding of Vedanta philosophy.
Okay, good.
The answer is an emphatic no. Liberation, or moksha, is not achieved through physical distance. It is not about abandoning your career or retreating to a forest, it is entirely a shift in understanding.
So it's an internal change.
Yes, it is a cognitive divorce from the illusion, not a physical separation from the world.
A cognitive divorce. I like that. That is a crucial distinction. Because when we talk about separating the self from the non-self, the mind automatically pictures physically pulling two objects apart.
Right, like separating two tangible things.
Yeah, like trying to pick tiny grains of sand out of a bowl of sugar.
Yeah.
But if pure consciousness is the invisible reality that pervades everything, you can't step outside of it. You can't physically isolate yourself from the world.
You can't physically extract the ocean from the waves. The separation Shankara advocates is epistemological. It is recognizing the difference between the seer and the seen.
The witness and the object.
Exactly. You realize that you are the eternal witness of the events of your life, rather than the limited, stressed-out character playing a role in them.
This brings to mind the ultimate analogy to help visualize this, and it might be the most powerful concept we discussed today, the movie screen.
It's a brilliant analogy.
It really is. Imagine you are sitting in a theater. The massive white screen is the background, the silent foundation, and the movie is projected entirely onto it. The screen and the moving images occupy the exact same physical space. You cannot find a single inch of the movie that is not resting on the screen.
They are intimately physically overlaid. One supports the other.
Right. Now, imagine an intense action scene in the movie. A towering building is engulfed in flames, explosions are rocking the speakers, characters are screaming in terror. The fire is raging right there, visually consuming the screen.
But does it burn?
No. Does the screen itself actually catch fire? No. The fabric of the screen remains completely untouched by the heat. The fire is temporary. It is just an appearance of light and shadow. The screen is the constant, unbothered reality that allows the drama of the fire to be witnessed.
That analogy perfectly captures the essence of a cognitive divorce. You are the screen.
I am the screen.
Yes. Your daily life, the demanding boss, the aging body, the financial stress, the joyous moments, all of that is the movie. The movie is playing out constantly in your presence. It has drama, it has stakes. But the fire of the external world cannot burn the screen of your consciousness.
But let's bring this down to the pavement for the listener. Tomorrow morning, you still have to wake up and go to work. You still get stuck in infuriating traffic.
Unfortunately, yes.
Right. If you are a parent, you still have a screaming toddler throwing oatmeal on the floor. How do you practically reconcile being this perfect, untouched screen with the messy, high blood pressure reality of your daily life?
Well, Shankara addresses the reality of our mental reactions with a brilliant concept called nysargika.
Nysargika.
It translates roughly to natural or innate. He acknowledges that this error, this deeply ingrained habit of identifying with the movie, is completely natural. It is a bug woven into the human software.
So we shouldn't beat ourselves up for feeling stressed.
Exactly. When a sudden surge of road rage or anxiety about a mortgage payment arises in your mind, you don't need to violently suppress it. You don't need to grab a stick and beat the snake.
You don't panic because you feel the anxiety. You just view it as a passing cloud. You observe it and say, oh, look, a stressful thought is currently appearing on the screen.
You acknowledge it as a natural, temporary modification of the mind, but you refuse to claim ownership of it. You don't declare, I am an angry, broken person.
Right, you're not the anger.
You note, anger is arising within the mind, but I am the silent witness observing the anger. And this cognitive shift opens the door to an incredibly empowering way of living, known as loka sangraha.
Lokasangraha.
Yes, which means acting for the welfare and cohesion of the world.
So Lokasangraha is how you stay deeply engaged in the world without being bound by the suffering of it.
Precisely. Once you realize you are the screen, you don't feel the need to unplug the projector or run out of the theater. You can stay exactly where you are.
You can stay in the mess of it.
You can be a high-powered CEO, a dedicated journalist, a struggling artist, or a busy parent. You continue to engage in all those complex actions. You willingly put on the costume of your profession or your role.
But with a different mindset.
Exactly, without the desperate, animalistic need to extract your sense of self-worth from the outcome. Because you know you are already complete, you are free to act simply because the play is happening, and you can use your role to contribute to the well-being of the whole.
You don't have to kill the wave to find the water.
I love that phrasing.
It's so true, right?
Okay.
You wake up, you put on the costume of your daily life, but you carry this deep, quiet knowledge that you are the untouched screen behind it all. You play your role with passion. You cry when the script of your life brings tragedy. You fight fiercely for justice when the script demands it, but you never lose sight of the fact that it is a role.
You are free from the desperate need to win the movie.
Yes, that is a definition of ultimate freedom in this philosophy.
Yeah.
You are fully, passionately involved, yet cognitively free.
You don't leave the world, you finally understand your place within it. And remarkably, all of this profound insight is just the preamble.
Just the introduction.
Shankara insists that only once you understand this, once you accept that your suffering is a case of mistaken identity, are you truly ready to begin inquiring into the deeper nature of reality.
What a phenomenal shift in perspective. We started by trying to conceptualize mixing light and darkness, which sounds like an abstract riddle, but turns out to be the exact tragedy you and I enact every day.
Every single day.
We explored how the brain weaponizes memory, creating terrifying snakes out of harmless ropes and tricking us into trying to beat the world into submission.
Beating the rope.
Yeah. We confronted the uncomfortable reality that relying on a pain and pleasure logic keeps us trapped in an animalistic operating system. And finally, we arrived at the realization that the cure isn't running away to a mountain peak. The cure is acting in the world, working for Lokasangraha, while remaining totally invulnerable to the fire on the screen.
It is a complete diagnostic overhaul of how we view ourselves.
Well, as we wrap up today's deep dive into the Adasabhasha, let's circle back to that medical x-ray from the beginning. It turns out the diagnostic picture isn't murky at all. The line is crystal clear. We are suffering from a chronic case of mistaken identity.
We really are.
But before we let you go today, how can you actually test this philosophical x-ray in your own reality?
I will leave you with a brief thought experiment, building on a simple analogy from the text about mirrors.
Okay, let's hear it.
Tomorrow morning, when you wake up and walk into the bathroom, you are going to look into the mirror. You will probably notice a smudge on your cheek, or a new gray hair, or tired bags under your eyes.
It's usual morning stuff.
Right. When you reach up to touch your face or wipe away the smudge, pause and ask yourself, are you the changing, aging, decaying reflection staring back at you in the glass? Or are you the silent, invisible space of awareness that allows that reflection to exist at all?
Wow.
And if you are the space, what could possibly harm you today?
If you were the space, what could possibly harm you today? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the mind of Adi Shankara. Keep questioning the reflection, keep turning on the light, and keep exploring the true nature of your I. We'll catch you next time.